All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone that rule well, that teach well while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. Also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophet, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth. And shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere and your children, shalom. And that today's video is going to be building off of this video from the brother, the Arrows of Indignation 144. Shalom to the Ak. And you basically going to have this video basically talking about the goal of these elites, man. Because we know ultimately what Esau Edom's ultimate agenda is. And it's ultimately to have, complete control and dominion over all of the people on the earth, man. Mainly the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And that's why ultimately this devil is going to come with that MOTBC hip in the very near future, man. And he's going to try to make a plan, because that's the whole purpose of this devil coming with this chip, is to ultimately to have power and control over the people. And this is the whole mindset of these elites, at the top, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Gettys, the DuPonts, all of these people. This is what they ultimately want to bring about. And we know that they're the ones that's coming with this device, and this is their plan ultimately. But they don't know that ultimately Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is going to take them down, right? That's what this devil does not realize, but pride has filled this man's mind to, where he feels as though he ultimately cannot be touched. He feel like he can't be brought down, and things like that, man. And I'm actually going to a precept just touching on that. This is Proverbs 16 and 18. It said, pride, right? Go up before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And that's what these Edomites don't know is coming for them, man, which is a fall. Because right along when they try to, establish their new world order, their enterprise, then everything is going to backfire on them, man. It's not going to go in the way in which they want it to go. It's not going to fulfill, man. The Lord tells you about that in the scriptures, man. It says, I'm going to get that. This is Job chapter 20, and I'm going to go to verse 23. It says, when he is about to fill his belly, right, these devils, when they thinking that their new world order is going to be set, when they thinking that everybody is going to be chipped worldwide and that they're going to be in full control and they're going to rule over the people, because that's ultimately the mindset this man has. He wants to be like the Most High. It tells you that in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And I'm actually get that after I finish reading, because that's ultimately why this man wants to do these things, because he has a God complex, But hey, what he's trying to do, which is bringing forth this new world order, is not going to fulfill, It's going to be short-lived, man. It says when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High, Yahweh, shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he's eating, man. And that's ultimately what's going to happen to these devil system, man. That whole new world order system is going to be taken down by Lord Yahweh Shai, man, when he returns in the midst of World War III, man. Right when this devil's thinking that his enterprise is going to be set up, right along when that chip's going to be mandated, and everything is going in this devil's favor, and he thinking everything is just good, and he got the victory, then the Lord is going to take this man down, right? And he knows that ultimately. That's why you see him speeding up with this agenda. They're trying to bring it forth quick, because it was Agenda 2030, but now they're talking about Agenda 2025, and things like that, with everything in which it is Trump is doing. And we know that he's a puppet for the elites, and they're going to use him to try to bring in this new world order here in America, man, right? Because we know a lot of these other countries, they just follow in suit with what they see Babylon the Great does. So once that system comes to this place, America, which we know it will come because it's all prophecy, then you're going to have everybody else around the world following in suit, man, So this devil's system is going to be short-lived, man. Though the MOTB is going to be made mandatory, because that's all going to the will and the power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. It's to fulfill prophecy. So the Lord is going to allow the chip to be made mandatory. But ultimately, like I said, once this devil brings in that chip, then he's ultimately going to be ushering in his end, his demise, man. As it tells you right here in this scripture. But I'm actually go to that 2 Thessalonians before I forget. So Salakia, bear with me. Right? Because this is ultimately why this man wants to establish his global order, man. You know, his technocracy system, you know. Because ultimately, like I said, that goes back to this man having a God complex. And that's that pride that Esau has, man. That's why in the scriptures it calls him, "Oh, thou most proud," man. You know, this man thinks ultimately that he is the Lord through the technology he has, the power he has, the wealth, all of these different types of things that the Lord have given this man. It has went to this devil's head, you know. And that's why he ultimately believed that he's going to succeed with this system he's trying to set up, right? This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 3. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come in the falling way first, and that man of sin be revealed," right? The son of perdition. That word perdition goes into destruction, which are these Edomites, man, right? And this is the point, verse 4. It said, "Who opposeth and exalteth himself," because when you exalt yourself, that's coming from a form of pride. And we know what the scripture said, right? "He that exalteth himself shall be abased." It tells you that in the book of, I believe, St. Luke chapter 14, verse 11, man. You know, that he that exalteth himself shall be abased. You know, "For if a man think of himself to be something, he deceiveth himself." Galatians 6:3, right? So this devil is deceiving his own self, man, by thinking that he's ultimately going to succeed with what he's trying to come with, man. You know, he's already deceived. He's already in the trick bag, right? Because it's not going to go to this devil's plan, you know, because it's all the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. So this thing is not going to go the way that this man ultimately believes that it's going to happen. You know, it's not going to go in that way. You know, it's not going to turn out the way he wants it to. You know, it's actually going to be to his demise, his destruction, you know. And this is verse 4 again. It said, "Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called the Most High," right? Or that is worship, so that he as the Most High sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High, man. Right? So that's what all of this goes back to. That's why you see this devil ultimately wanting to bring forth his new world order system, man, because he ultimately wants to be in control over all the people, man, mainly the Israelites, you know. And that's what this man does. You know, he's the wicked of the earth, you know, but we know the Lord said that, you know, they were given this power for a certain period of time. You know, this is Job chapter 9, verse 24. It says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, man. Talking about these elites, these rich banking families that are at the top, who ultimately agenda it is to bring forth this chip in this new world order, right? But they don't know that, like I said, the Lord is the one that's controlling their minds. You know, he's making these devils think that ultimately they're going to succeed with their new world order and everything is going to work in their favor, you know, because they don't know that the Lord controls both the right and the left hand side, man. So these demons that are, you know, giving these devils these plans and, you know, things and making them feel like they're going to succeed, they don't even know that they have already lost, man. You know, it says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, wherein who is he?" Right? That's talking about the Edomites, you know. So, yeah, I'm going to get into this video so we can basically see what it is that the video is saying. But, you know, that's basically what I was trying to prove. You know, the point with, you know, these devils' system is not going to succeed, man. Though they are trying to bring it and though it is going to be established, you know, on a short scale, you know, they are going to bring forth the MOTBC hip, you know, because that's a part of prophecy, but it's all the will of the Lord. He's going to put the spirit on them to bring in that chip. They're not doing these things according to their own will. You know, they're not doing these things because ultimately they want to do it. No, the Lord is putting it in them to do it, man. Tells you that in Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart, meaning his mind, is in the hands of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will, man. So the Lord is the one controlling Esau on the left-hand side, man. You know, and these devils. All right, so fair use. Not getting paid for this video, fair use.
The lust to control other human beings is the story as old as time. There's a very strong drift in the direction of globalization, of the ultimate centralization of control in the hands of unelected officials at supranational organizations.
They want all of the resources of the world in their pocket.
The bigger picture is that an attempt is underway now to collapse liberal democracy and replace it with global technocracy.
This is a coup. They're saying we can control with rules. We don't need currency anymore.
It's like an inverted prison. You are supposedly free to roam about, but everything you want to access is behind lock and key.
The potential for social control is gigantic and potential.
right? And you see what it is they're talking about in the video, you know, and that's ultimately what this devil wants to do with his enterprise, you know, is to bring forth that MOTB chip. That's going to be a main, you know, device that this devil's going to use to, you know, in his mind, to control the people, man. And a lot of people he is going to control with it, because a lot of people are going to take it. But, you know, the Lord's elect is not going to take that device. But, you know, the 2/3 and these other heathens and everybody else that depend upon this man's system, you know, they're going to take his device, man. And they're going to be destroyed right along with him, you know. But I'm going to get this precept right here. This is Obadiah chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 3. The pride of thine heart, right, have deceived thee. That's talking about these devils. The pride of their mind have deceived them, man, right? Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high. Talking about you elites, man. That saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And that's how these devils feel, man. Because like they just said in the video, they control everything, man. You know, they control the money system. They control the banks. They control, you know, the goods and the commerce. They control all of these things as of now. So these devils are filled with pride, man. They're filled with arrogancy. You know, they don't feel like they can be brought down from that high horse that they're on, but they're sadly mistaken. Because Lord Yahushua is going to bring these devils down, man. You know, when he ultimately makes his second return, when that chip is made mandatory, you know, like I read in Job 20 and 23 earlier, when he is about to fill his belly, you know, the Lord going to cast forth his fierceness and anger upon his devil, man, and his system, right, through those ICBM nuclear missiles. So like I said, this whole new world order that this man ultimately wants to establish is not going to succeed, man. You know, it's going to be short-lived, right? So this is Obadiah chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, right? You feel like ain't nobody going to touch you. You feel like you're going to succeed with chipping everybody in the world. You feel like you're going to have full ownership over all of the people. You know, this is what this man believes, you know, and these what these devils think they're going to accomplish, you know. And it says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, right? Thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord, right? Because it's ordained for you devils to be brought down. So even though you exalt yourselves through your pride, you know, in the money and the riches and the things that you have in this world, you're going to see that the Lord is going to bring you down, because it's all part of prophecy, man. You know, and I'm going to get a precept on that. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 7. It said, then answered I and said, what shall be the part and the sum of the times? And when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth, right? Because as I read in Job 9 and 24 earlier, these devils are in a rulership right now, you know, but their power structure is coming to an end, right? That's why you see all of these prophecies happening worldwide, man. That's why you see World War III heating up. That's why you see them pushing so much for a digital currency, because these devils know they got a short time to ultimately to come with this system, man. They know that sooner to come that the Lord, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, whose name is Yahushua, is going to return, man, and take these devils down, man, you know. And it says, verse 8, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Verse 9, this is the point. For Esau, meaning the so-called white man, these rich elite banking families that are in power now, right? It's the end of the world, meaning the ending of this age and this eon. And Jacob, meaning you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians of the elect, is the beginning of it that followeth, man. Starting off with the first elect, which is our Lord Yahushua, you know. So that's what's coming, man. That's why you got these devils trying to push fast with bringing forward this new world order, because they know it's going to be short-lived, and they know it's not going to succeed as though they wanted to, you know, even though, you know, they're full of pride and thinking that they're not going to go down. You know, this thing is going to be, you know, destroyed, man. It's not going to prosper, right? And I'm going to go to a precept touching on that. This is Job chapter 5, and I'm going to start at verse 12 in the KJV, right? It says, he, meaning the Heavenly Father, right? The one who's in control of all things, who these devils ultimately try to be like, or who they're trying to think that they are, disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise, right? And what is their enterprise? The new world order, you know, having power and control over all of the people worldwide, you know, having everybody in digital slavery, you know, controlling over them, ruling over them. This is what this man enterprise is ultimately to bring about. But like I said before, it's going to be short-lived. It's not going to prosper, man. You know, the Lord is going to destroy it, you know. And this is verse 13. It said, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, right? Talking about you devils, man, because even though you going to try to bring forth this system and you thinking it's all going to work to your benefit, it's really going to be to your demise. Because like I said, these are the prophecies that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is allowing to be brought forth. And once you bring in this digital system, you ultimately is ushering in your end, right? Like I just read in 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, man. You know, Esau is the end of the world and Jacob the beginning of it that followeth. You know, so you're really going to be putting yourself in the trick bag when you bring forth this system, man. You know, and it says, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong, right? So, you know, that's ultimately what's going to happen, man. You know, the Lord is going to take this devil down in his craftiness, man. You know, going to use his own system to bring in his demise and his destruction, man. You know, that's why I read that Proverbs 16 and 18, pride go before destruction and the haughty spirit before a fall, man. You know, and that's what's really going to bring this devil down, his pride, you know.
Potential for social control is gigantic and potentially irreversible.
They plan to commandeer land, reduce farming, and radically change the food we eat, transform the supply of electricity, and then dictate how we use it, and replace currency with a system of credits. All three strategies are built on the premise of a climate crisis caused by carbon dioxide.
I do not think there's a climate crisis, and I base that on all the evidence and the climate data sets that we build to answer questions just like that. The government is very clear that they want a catastrophic story. There is no single science paper that proves conclusively that
Right. And you heard what it is he said. He said the government wants a catastrophic story, right? Ordo ab chaos, you know. They create the problem, then they see the reaction of the people, and then they come with the solution. And like I said earlier, what is going to be the solution? Them bringing in that chip, man, trying to control and rule over all the people, man. Mainly you Israelites, man. That's what these devils are ultimately going to bring, because we know it's a part of prophecy. So that MOTB chip will be made mandatory. It will come, you know, but it's not going to prosper, you know. And this devil's not going to prosper, and his enterprise that he's ultimately trying to establish, that's going to be short-lived as well, right? And I'm going to go to another precept just touching on that. Did the book of Job, chapter 20. And I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked, right, you devils, is short, right? So like I said before, that's why they're trying to speed up this New World Order system, because they know they only have a short time to ultimately to establish it. You know, these devils know the prophecies on the left-hand side. They know that the Lord is going to take them down. They know, and they know they got a short period of time to bring forth this NWO that they ultimately want to achieve. That's why they're speeding up everything now. You know, that's why you see so much about Neuralink and digital technology and AI and cryptocurrency and all of this stuff, man, because this is what they're pushing towards, right? But it's going to be short-lived, right? It says, and the joy of the hypocrite, but for a moment, right? Because that's how it's going to go, man. You know, this man is going to establish his chip and, you know, make it worldwide so that everybody can't buy or sell unless they have it. But guess what? That's going to be short-lived as well, man. You know? Because like I said earlier, you know, once he bring in his chip, you know, ultimately trying to have control and power over everybody, he's ultimately ushering in his own demise, right? And it says, verse 6, though his excellency mount up to the heavens, right, through your pride, and his head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? And that's ultimately going to be the end for you Edomites, man. You know, after you have served in captivity for 1,000 years under the nation of Israel, you devils are going to be eradicated, man. So like I said, your pride is really going to get you destroyed. Literally, after 1,000 years of hardcore bondage, then guess what? You people are going to be eradicated from off of the face of the earth. That's what the Lord is going to bring to this man, right? Verse 8, he shall fly away as a dream, right? And shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night, right? The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him, right? Because you're going to be a memory, man. You know, all of you devils, you know, that's what the Lord is going to bring upon you people, man. Total eradication after you have served out your punishment, man, of 1,000 years, All right, so I'm going to go to a precept just to prove that. You know, this is Obadiah chapter 1. And I'm going to go down to verse... I'm going to go straight to the point, verse 18. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, right? And the house of Joseph, which is talking about both northern and southern kingdom, right? All 12 tribes of Israel, mainly the elect. Flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, right? Talking about you Edomites, you know, you rich elite banking families, you Rothschilds, all of you damn devils that are in power now, right? All of you people are going to be for stubble, man, which means you're going to be eradicated. You know, you're going to be no more to be remembered after your punishment is served. It says, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken it, man. So like I said before, the Lord is going to totally annihilate this man, right along with annihilating his system and taking down his rulership. Then he's going to put this man in chains, right along with the rest of these heathens, you know, and they're going to serve under the Israelites, man. You know, that's why I read that 2nd Ezra 6 and 9 earlier. You know, because this is what we see happening. And that's why you ultimately going to see this devil moving quickly with trying to establish this global world order, man. Because he knows that he only have a short time. As it tells you in Revelation 12 and 12, how the devil shall come down upon you having great wrath. Because he knows that he have but a short time, man. And he knows that he only has a short time to fulfill his enterprise, man. You know? But yeah, it's going to be short-lived for him, though. You know, it's not going to prosper at all, man. You know, so I'm actually go to another precept just, you know, on these devils ultimately going into captivity, man, because that's where they're going after this man is taken down and the Lord returns. You know, this devil is going head first into slavery, man. And also you other heathens out there, you know, those that do survive, right, going to be the first fruits of slavery, man. Right. So I'm going to get this precept. This is Psalms chapter 2. Right, and I'm going to start at verse 7. It said, I will declare the decree, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua have said unto me, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Right, verse 8, ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen, talking about you heathen nations, head and start with Esau, Edom, so-called white man, and the rest of you heathens as well. Have said unto me, Salakia, ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, right? And the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. This is ultimately what's going to occur when Jacob is in rulership. You know, the Israelites, you know, this is going to be after Esau, Edom is taken down, you know, and the Israelites are in power. You know, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put all of you nations into captivity, man, you know. And like I read in Obadiah 1 and 18, Esau, Edom, after he have served out that punishment of slavery for 1,000 years, this man is going to be eradicated from off of the face of the earth. That goes along with what I read in Job 20 and I believe verse 8, you know. But this is what's coming, man. You know, that's why we see these devils speeding up everything quickly, man. And the Lord is putting a spirit on them to move quickly, because we know also the Lord said that he's speeding up the time as well for the elect's sake. So the Lord is moving real fast, and these devils on the left-hand side, they're moving quickly as well, right? So I'm going to read verse 8 again. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with the rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel, right? And that's what the men of the Lord are going to do, mainly the elect, man. When we have you devils in captivity, man, you people are going to be under subjection to the nation of Israel, man, you know? So all of that stuff that you devils do now, exalting yourself in your pride, all of that is going to be brought down very soon, man. You know? And that's ultimately what we're warning you about, the men of the Lord, starting with the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And that's ultimately why you devils are scared, man. Because you know that this is coming, man. You know? And I'm going to go to another precept just touching on that slavery, man. Because that's what's coming for you devils. Psalm chapter 149. And I'm going to start at verse, bear with me. I'm going to start at verse 6. Because you seen what I just read in verse 8 and verse 9 in Psalm chapter 2, right? How it says we shall dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel, you know. This is verse 6. It said, let the high praises of the Most High be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand, right? This is going to be the elect, right? To execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, right? That's what the elect is going to do to you nations, man. Chiefly Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Right? And it says to buy their kings, right? You damn elites, you Rockefellers, you Rothschilds, all of you people that are in power now that ultimately believe that your new world order is going to succeed. You know, you're going to be the first fruits of slavery. You that do survive the nuclear destruction, you know, because we know a lot of you are going to hide in your bunkers and things like that, you know, and it tells you about that in Revelation 6, you know, on down, verse 15 on down. You know, how they're going to be hiding in their bunkers, talking about hide us from the face of him, you know, the Lord, because they're going to know their punishment is coming, man. You know, so it says, I'm going to read verse 7 again. It says to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, right? To bind their kings with chains, right? And their nobles with fetters of iron. That's talking about you Edomites, man, and you other nations. All of you people that are responsible ultimately for the oppression of the Lord's people, man. You know, we're going to put you people in captivity, you know, and that's ultimately where you people belong, man. Especially Esau, the so-called white man. This is Revelation chapter 13. And I'm going to start at 9, right? It said, if any man have an ear, let him hear, right? This is verse 10. It says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, right? Just like you led our people over here. And we know ultimately it was according to prophecy, but still, you know, you put us on the transatlantic slave trade. You sold Israelites on auction blocks. You know, you made a lot of money and you accumulated a lot of wealth, you know, oppressing and, you know, having the Lord's people in captivity and in bondage, man. And we still are yet in this day in our captivity, as it tells you in the book of Baruch, chapter 3, verse 8, man. You know, so it says, he that killeth with the sword, right, must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, right? And like I just read in Psalm chapter 149, we're going to execute that judgment upon you heathens, man, right? In the kingdom of heaven, you know, which is coming very soon, you know, which is going to be a kingdom that's going to be governed in righteousness, man, right? So that's what's coming, man. You know, so that's going to be the new or the real new world order, man, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven, which it tells you about in the book of Daniel, chapter 7. I'm going to actually get that through the Spirit. And Salakia, we're all over the place, brothers and sisters. So Lord's will, this video be edifying. You know, I just go with whatever the Spirit lead me to, you know. This is Daniel chapter 7. Just touching on the kingdom of heaven, man, because that's what's coming, which is going to be the real new world order, not this artificial new world order that Esau wants to create on the left-hand side, man. That's not going to succeed. We're talking about the true new world order, which is going to be governed and ran in righteousness, man. That's what's coming, all right? So this is Daniel chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse... We'll start at verse 13. It said, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. That's going to be the Lord Yahushua, man, appearing with the chariots of Israel, you know, which what these people ignorantly call UFOs, right? And it says, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, right? Verse 14. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall Salakia, and his kingdom which shall not be destroyed, right? And this is what ultimately Esau Edom wants to accomplish, but on the left-hand side. That's why he wants to put microchips inside of everybody, man, because this is his definition and his wicked mind of being like the Most High. But he don't know that ultimately the Lord is going to take this devil down, man. Right when he thinking that he's going to establish his new world order and everything is going to be working in his favor, the Lord is going to return and destroy all of that and are going to store this righteous kingdom, man. You know, that's going to be ran by the Israelites, man. Mainly the Lord Yahushua, King David, the 12 and the 144,000, man. Right? So I'm going to go down. This verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. Right? Verse 16, I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. Right, verse 17, these great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth, right? And we're in the last king or the last rulership or empire now, which is the revise of the Roman Empire, right? When we see that with these devils, man, it tells you about that in Daniel chapter 2, you know, which goes into the toes, which were part mirror clay and part iron, right? We're in the last kingdom, man, right? So we know after this kingdom is destroyed, the kingdom of heaven is coming, man, right? So it says, verse 18, but the saints of the Most High, meaning the elect, shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever, man, right? And that's ultimately what's going to come, man. You know, so this new world order and things of that nature, which it is, this devil ultimately wants to bring it to fruition, or what he ultimately believes is going to come forth. It's not going to happen, man. You know, it's going to be taken down. You know, it's going to be short-lived. And this man's plans is not going to prosper, man. You know? So I'm actually get back into this video just so we can watch the rest of it. It's probably about another minute and a half left. So we're going to watch that, and then I'm going to get ready to wrap this thing up through the Spirit, you know. But yeah, this is the time of season that we're in, brothers and sisters. You know, these things are beginning to happen, man. You know, these devils are definitely trying to come with that new world order system, and they definitely is setting up everything to bring forth this system, man, and this chip, which, hey, we're ready for it, because like I said earlier, you know, once this devil brings in this chip, man, he's ultimately ushering in his demise, man, his destruction. So, hey, we're ready for this devil to bring in this NWO chip, man. You know? Ultimately.
Europe's mad dash towards net zero is effectively economic suicide. Politicians are purposely impoverishing ordinary people, purposely deindustrializing Europe. It's just tremendous amounts of damage in the name of saving the planet. It does make you ask, what is it we're actually saving through paving it over?
I think what we're dealing with here is actually a global war on agriculture.
When you look at how many farms are selling up, we're walking into food shortages.
If I can switch everybody from real food to pharma food, then 100% of the agriculture industry can go through my publicly traded stocks, and I have complete control.
This is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. It's a blueprint. It is the action plan.
All life on Earth is going to be radically changed.
Everything will be monitored. The environmental consequences of every human action. The general population cannot fathom the psychopathy of the vision that they're facing.
Once the digital ID is in place, it's game over for humanity.
Right? And like I said, that MOTBC is going to come, man, because it's a major part of prophecy, you know. And I'm actually go to that precept, you know, through the Spirit. You know, this is Revelations chapter 13, because this is ultimately the goal of these devils. But like I said before, ultimately, the Lord is the one putting the Spirit on them to bring this chip forth, man. They're not doing these things on their own accord, right? That's why I brought out that Proverbs 21:1 earlier, man. These people are not doing anything that the Lord is not allowing them to do, you know. But like I said, the pride of this devil makes him feel like that he's the one that's controlling everything. He's the one that's coming with this chip. No, man, it's the Lord's chip, right? And he's just using you to bring it forth, right? This is Revelation 13:16. And he, right, talking about you elite devils who the Lord is putting the thoughts in your mind to bring forth this device, right? Causes all, both small and great, right? Which are talking about these countries, you know, both great nations and both small nations, right? Rich and poor, right? So it doesn't matter your status in this earth. Doesn't matter if you're poor, you're sleeping on a bench outside. Doesn't matter if you're rich and you got everything, right? Everybody is going to have to get in line with this digital system that these devils is ultimately bringing. Only those that are not going to subscribe to it are the Lord's elect, man. And we pray that we can be a part of that. It says free and bond, right, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. The word mark in the Greek goes into charagma, right, which is, you know, going to be that RFID chip, man, you know, that chip the size of a grain of rice that they're going to put in people's right hands or in their left hands, You know, depending on whatever hand you get it in, because we know when it's talking about the hand, it's talking about just your power hand, because you got a lot of people that are left-handed, they're going to get it inserted via the left hand, and people that are right-handed, they're going to get it inserted in the right. Right? Then you're also going to have people getting it in their foreheads. That's why you see Elon Musk with the Neuralink technology, you know, putting all of these, chips in people's brains that they're able to, control things and stuff like that. So like I said, this stuff is already here, man. You know, but like I said, we're just not to the level yet to where it's about to come out. But I mean, like I said, everything is in the will and the power of the Lord. The Lord can allow these devils to bring this chip in tomorrow. You know, we don't know. You know, it's all the will of the Lord. But this is verse 17. It says, "In that no man might buy or sell save he or she that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." Right? And like I said, once this devil implements this MOTB system, then he's ultimately ushering in his demise, which is going to be shortly after, right? And I'm going to actually go to that precept again, man, because, you know, the Spirit wanted it to come out again. This is Job chapter 20, verse 23, right, in the KJV. It said, when he is about to fill his belly, right, when he thinking that he done chipped everybody and everything is going in his favor, right, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. And how is the Lord going to do that? Those ICBM nuclear missiles, man, right, which is going to take down this devil's system, you know, right along with the chariots of Israel that are going to be shooting laser beams upon this place. That's going to be the ending of this devil's system, man. That's why we tell you brothers and sisters that this man's system is ultimately going to be short-lived and that he ultimately don't have a lot of time, you know. And he knows he doesn't as well. Like I said earlier, that's why he's moving so quickly to ultimately to get these things in place, man. Because he knows he only have a certain amount of time, man, you know, to try to establish his short-lived system, man. Right? So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Lord's willing, I pray it be edifying. You know, just something quick through the Spirit. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom.